Hello and welcome to CVG's Dark Souls 2 E3 preview show. I'm Tim Clark and I'm joined by Dan Dawkins and Tim Weaver. But we're about to hear from official PlayStation Magazine's Deputy Editor and Dark Souls super fan, Joel Gregory, about what he's made of the game so far.
Welcome back to E3 2013. I'm joined by official PlayStation Magazine's Deputy Editor, Joel Gregory. Hello, Joel.
Hi.
Hi. And Joel's been to see and has had hands-on with From Software's incredible, monstrously difficult sequel, Dark Souls 2. Joel, tell us all about it. Is it as hard as Dark Souls 1?
It's pretty hard. Yeah, Dark Souls appeals to a certain kind of person, and if you've finished the first Dark Souls or gotten into it, it's everything and you love it. And that's me. So I was super excited to get hands-on with this one. I didn't play a very big section, but it probably didn't need to be any bigger because I kept dying. I died within, I would say, 8 seconds.
Nice. That's good. That's good quick death.
Yeah, it's there's some new features. You can carry 3 weapons now instead of 2. Okay. You can dual wield and actually use the weapon in your left hand rather than just hold it limply. New animations. It's a lot slicker. The combat system is the same, so it's as simplistic as it was, but it works a lot more smoothly.
Well, that's good news. 'Cause I always thought, I'll stop you there, because Dark Souls 1 has perhaps one of the best melee combat systems I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. So what sort of adjustments does it have to that? How can it get better?
That's the thing. They haven't really changed it because everyone would be up in arms. All they've done is make these amendments to it in terms of, like I say, how you can wield your weapons, how many you can wield. And they've changed animations in terms of, it's not like you get locked into one animation, like when you stabbed someone from behind before, that was an unbreakable animation. Now for instance, you'll bash them on the back of the head with the handle of your sword and then stab them, and that can be broken halfway through. Or I saw a really cool one where he just started hacking at his back and tried to chop him up. It basically means you can't spam the game as much as before in terms of you can't use the same tactics on everybody, and if you're doing PvP, someone might be able to break that or dodge out of the way before you keep doing that.
So you mentioned PvP. Now, Dark Souls had some really revolutionary and fantastic multiplayer experiences in PvP and co-op play. How does Dark Souls 2, from what you've seen, implement those features, or does it change them at all?
As far as I know so far, then I haven't said much. It's similar. It's 4-player PvP, so it can be 3 versus 1, 2 versus 2, or 1 versus 3, the other way around, I guess. I think it's going to function much the same in terms of invading game worlds, but that is sort of on ice at the moment. It looks like what we want it to be. There are a couple of concerning things they mentioned in terms of the difficulty, sort of healing items and stuff like that, but we're 9 months away from launch, so I have a feeling all of these concerns will be addressed. It's really hard. I fought a boss, this sort of enormous mirrored knight fellow. I managed to take about 4mm off his health bar before he killed
Fantastic.
me.
That's a victory of sorts.
Exactly. So it's again, it looks beautiful. It's an all-new engine, graphically big step up, but it's retained that sort of beautifully desolate art style. It's really exciting. If you like Dark Souls, you love Dark Souls, and you're probably going to love this, or at least I really hope we all will.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Joel. Well, more on Dark Souls 2 as and when we get it.
Well, that sounds like it's going to be one of Joel's game of the shows. I've played a bit of Dark Souls. I got my ass handed to me in fairly uncertain style. Do you think, boys, this is going to draw in a new audience at all, or do you think it's really just playing to the gallery of people who've kind of loved the series thus far?
Doesn't sound like it, does it? I mean, they've made it. I mean, chief among the concerns that amongst Dark Souls aficionados is that don't make it easier. Don't make it easier. That's all you hear, and it doesn't sound like they've made it particularly easy. I mean, I think at E3 Namco were handing out T-shirts to people who could beat the Mirror Knight, and Joel said he took 4mm off his health bar, so I think the T-shirts are fairly safe.
Well, I read one preview who talked about the Mirror Knight is the boss character that Joel mentioned, who can, I think, send another version of himself out of the mirror. He always plays when that happens.
Yeah.
But before he got to him, the chap I was reading said he had to fight 4 large knights with horses' heads who began life as statues, and he said until they switched on God mode, he couldn't get past them, and he was like a big time player of the last game. Apparently, the PR chap on the stand told him afterwards that the trick is you have to walk up to them before they kind of animate and just chop their heads off.
Right.
Nice if you'd have known at the start.
Well, I mean, Dark Souls is about trial and error. A lot of it, isn't it? You make a bad mistake and you go back and rectify it. I mean, amongst people who love it, like Joel, I mean, one of the guys I work with, he's completed 80 hours on that game.
I don't think in the office there's been a game this generation, which the people who fell for it have fallen for it quite so hard. I mean, Dave, who's the chap who's interviewing Joel, is probably a more casual player than a lot of us here who've worked in games for a long time, and yet I know he's sunk, I think, north of 100 hours into it, and just he goes soul farming and will just farm an area for hours and hours at a time. Your idea of a good time, that Dan?
I mean, it is in a way. It is my idea of a good time. A lot of the games I've loved throughout the years have been exactly that kind of game. Something so deep and gargantuan you can master it through trial and error. But unfortunately, that kind of game comes with a terrifying time sink. And like as a more mature gentleman now with less time on my hands, I find it's much harder to go, I'm committing to an 80-hour game that's going to be rock solid and drive me mad.
Well, I remember on the days when you were on PSM3, you and some of the other writers, you would take a real pride in sort of trying to break the hardest games. The harder a game was, almost the bigger a challenge you saw.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you think there's a culture now of a bit of that coming back? Do you think, generally speaking, games have become too soft on the players? They're too keen to handhold. You have buttons now. You play a game like Dead Space, press a button, it will show you a line, literally for you to follow to take you to the next area. Do you think like that? There's a sense of an audience out there which misses games that were super hard.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's an audience out there who want their games super, super hard. I think, that sort of hand-holding, like you saw in BioShock Infinite as well, it's like the arrow that kind of, goes out in front of you when you don't know where you are. And I think that's a natural evolution as games become bigger and get to a wider audience, I think what is important to remember is that although people do really, really, there's a group of people who think Dark Souls is literally the best game of the generation. I think there are a lot of players out there who are completely intimidated by that game and don't want to get into an experience where you're dying after 8 seconds like Joel did.
It's a strange thing
difficult balance,
because I definitely feel that way generally. I think that there's an interesting dilemma for any game maker in that. I think there's a natural inclination to try and remove frustration and certainly a degree, the idea of unfairness. And I think that one of the reasons people love Dark Souls as a series is because as hard as it is, it's fundamentally fair. And if you get that right, the players will accept it. But I played a game called Hotline Miami, an indie game, a lot last year. And it was like you could be dead within a second of starting any levels. But the sense of satisfaction correspondingly then when you nailed something and when you got to the next bit was all the greater than you might feel in I don't know, like a Call of Duty where essentially you're just
plowing through.
You can pretty much almost with your eyes shut chomp forward.
And as you prove, it's not necessarily that there's like a definite type of person who will like this game. I think that Dave Boddington's an example, as in you wouldn't necessarily peg him as a man who's going to play this in-depth 80-hour RPG. But if you're from software, you've got to somehow make your game more popular just so you can keep making them essentially. Now, is it a case of not so much changing what you do, but changing the messaging to the world? So rather than saying, it's the world's hardest game again, so loads of people instantly go, whoa, no thanks, pal. Is there a different way to sell it to the world that makes it sound enticing? And when you get in, whoopsie-daisy, it's really, really hard to play. But, as you say, fair and rewarding. People keep going.
It's such a difficult balance, that, though. It must be like a real PR sort of nightmare for them because they came out of the traps and said this game, they sort of alluded to the fact that this game was easier. And now they're sort of backtracking on that, saying it's harder because the people, who played Dark Souls and loved it were like, I don't want it to be easier. And of course, they've got to make sure those people primarily come back.
I think, and this will mark me out as a proper idiot when people listen to it. But I think if they'd have gone next gen, like I'm such a graphics whore that just the enticement of it looking, crazy good might have been enough to draw me in just to experiment in that world again. Yeah. But I think once I'm distracted by Xbox One and PS4, and I'll probably focus on that rather than trying to schlep through this. But clearly it's going to, I think, tick a lot of boxes for the existing audience, and I'm sure for the people who are already into it, it must be one of the most exciting things in development right now. We'll be back over the course of the rest of the week with more gameplay reaction videos, so do stay tuned to both the website and the CBG YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe. Cheers.